Who is your daddy? I am your father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things here.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?
Well, welcome to episode 114 of Fathers of the Grind. My name's Tim Nestor, here as always with Derek Teague. Good evening, my friend.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We just got the kids down for bed. My wife's actually finishing up on a few of the younger ones. And it's just the best time of night when you have kids, when they're all in bed and you finally have the freedom to do what you want to do, whatever that is. Yeah. So it's a great time of night, but of course giving up some of that time to do this useless show.
Yeah.
So
that's how I feel about it. Every time you text me, I'm like flicking off my phone, like, screw you. Stop trying to talk to me, Tim.
Yeah, we're not friends.
Well, I'm excited because I just found out like I have Monday off work, and apparently my kids still have to go to school, and my wife still has to go to work. So that gives me an entire day to myself.
Wait, the kids are not off for President's Day, huh?
No, unless my wife screwed that up. But she's like, "Yeah, the kids have school." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Florida doesn't care about the presidents, apparently.
No, they only care about Martin Luther King Jr. because of racism.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. That's good reasoning. All right, well, we're going to talk about stuff that we're playing. I've played a few new games I want to talk about this week. As well as, I want to look back at 2017. There's some interesting sales numbers that came up, both in terms of console sales and then software sales are kind of a tricky thing. So we'll get into those a little bit too, how those are measured. It really depends on what you're looking for. It's not as straightforward, cut and dried as we'd like. So we'll get into that a little bit and talk about how 2017 went. With sales numbers, I'll try to put Derek to sleep with data. That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, other than that, I just wanted to make sure you guys know we actually just jumped on Twitter. Of course, both of us were individually on Twitter, but we went ahead and created a Fathers of the Grind account to post about shows, to post about video game stuff, to retweet stuff that we're seeing. And it's at the FOTG, at the, as Derek says, FOTGA. So you can find us on there, or you can just search for Fathers of the Grind. You'll find us there on Twitter. So go check us out, follow us, all that good stuff, whatever you're supposed to do with the Twitters. All right, so Derek, I see your interesting list of games here that you're playing. Why don't you tell us what have you been playing this week?
Well, again, I didn't type it in because I don't like the show and I don't like to be bothered. And you decide to type in with himself.
That's gross. Why would you? Don't tell us about that.
With himself. Yeah, I do that daily, but I have been kind of gaming. I'm kind of back into that slump. I finished 4 in February, actually last weekend. When we recorded the show, I had beat 2 games. I'd beat Fable and Call of Duty World War II, but said that I was probably going to be able to finish at least Star Wars Battlefront 2's campaign. Well, I actually ended up finishing Star Wars Battlefront 2's campaign and Assassin's Creed Rogue. I've been working on Rogue forever, so to beat Fable and Assassin's Creed Rogue in this 4 in February is pretty awesome. I can't say the experience with Assassin's Creed Rogue ended up being pretty awesome. I find it's weird. I'm a huge Assassin's Creed fan. Like, I've always defended that series. I love it. But
me too.
But as the games have changed, and I'm not just talking about Origins, but as just even Assassin's Creed Unity, of course Syndicate, they have definitely made some positive changes. To go back to Black Flag and Rogue was especially Rogue, was very frustrating. I also, you got to keep in mind, for other people, they might enjoy it. I hate the ship battles, and there was one at the end of Rogue that was just so freaking frustrating because you had to kill, I think, 6 ships, and I would sink 5 of them, and then when I'm about ready to fight the 6th one, which was the most difficult one, he would just destroy me in 2 seconds. So the game was like, do you wanna grind and build your ship up before you fight this? I'm like, no, I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah.
And so I finally got lucky. I had upgraded one thing that I had already had the ability to upgrade. I just forgot to do it, so I didn't have to grind to do it. It was like my ramming dock, and I just kept going straight at him and ramming him, and then turning my ship to the side and blowing him up, and then moving away, going back, ramming him, and I just repeated that until I finally beat him. But anyway, so I completed the 4 in February, and then after that, I kind of went back into my I don't want a game funk. I have
Just
been
watching TV.
yeah, I've been watching Peaky Blinders. I love that show. I do want to touch on real quick. Of course, I play Rocket League. I'm looking at my Xbox, by the way. I'm trying to remember what I've played. I'll talk about Kingdom Come because that's the new release. But I also jumped back into, surprisingly, I don't even know why. It's not really for 4 in February. I just decided to play Sunset Overdrive. I wanted to see where I was.
Yeah, I grabbed that free with Games with Gold a while back, and I still haven't played it.
Well, I had already started. I bought it at launch, and I got now that I've checked the guide, because it's been years since I've played it, I'm about halfway through. And so I started playing it. I'm not saying I'm hooked. It's one of those games while I'm playing, I'm like, oh, I'm having fun. But I also am not again, I think it's the funk. I'm not driven to play it. But I'll see if I'll beat it. I might try to beat that one. So Sunset Overdrive, I'm back in that one. It's a little bit more fun than I had at launch. I actually didn't like it at launch. Normally when people bring that game up, I don't usually have anything positive to say about it. But now I think my tune's changing. The other one that I didn't want to forget about was Splinter Cell Conviction. I bought it on the Xbox One. It's backwards compatible. I was going to play it on PC, but PC is complete garbage. I couldn't even get the joysticks to register the camera, so you can't even get past...
So you can't use your...
It has controller support,
Oh,
but when you actually try to use the controller, it doesn't work. And there was a guy I'm in Colin Moriarty's gaming group on Facebook. I forgot what it's called, Side Quest or whatever. And one of the guys had mentioned that when I posted about this game being backwards compatible, he's like, it's complete shite on PC. And I was like, well, let me try it first and see if I can save myself $10 plus get better graphics, because it looks way better on PC than it does on Xbox 360/1. But unfortunately, it didn't work, so I just went ahead and spent the $10, got the 360 version of it, and I'm about halfway through that too. Just slowly playing. I'll play a level, which does, by the way, if anybody's played the game, does not take that long. So I'm playing about a level, and then I'm like, I don't want to play anymore. So nothing's hooking me where I'm like, I just want to sit there for 4 or 5 hours and play it. And then the last thing I'll talk about is Kingdom Come Deliverance. I shouldn't have bought this. Not because it's a trash game. It's not. If you're at all interested in the game, it's probably going to be pretty good for you. I just shouldn't have bought it because I'm not in the mood to game, and this is not a game you buy if you're not in the mood to game. It's very complex. It's realistic. I went to go try to fight a drunk dude in the beginning of the game, and I was just getting my butt handed to me. I'm like, why am I not punching? What is going... The game's not even telling me how to do anything. Granted, there's different things you can do that I discovered that then the game explains these things to you. So it's kind of in a way, while there is no order, it kind of is basically saying, well, you should have done this, and then we would have told you how to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm just not in the mood for it. So again, I don't have anything positive to say about it, but I'm not going to bash it because it's not the game's fault. It's completely me. I'm more mad that I just bought it because I did want it. For those who are like, well, you just buy games to buy games. I had $60 from Sea of Thieves. I got a refund on Sea of Thieves, and I really did want to own this game. I've been watching it for months. I've been waiting for it, hoping it would review pretty well. It's doing pretty good. IGN gave it an 8. I've seen other people
the preview stuff wasn't great, but then now the review stuff is pretty good.
Yeah,
so it's been up and down a little bit. Yeah,
it basically comes down to, because this is definitely, I know you can literally say this about every game, but this game, it really applies to it. This game comes down to, you have to listen to reviews, and if anything sounds like it's annoying, stay away until it's cheap. And what I mean by that is, like, for instance, I had played maybe like 30 minutes today. Well, everything I did, it's gone because you can't manually save unless you buy this expensive alcoholic drink to save, and the game doesn't save like every 5 seconds like other games. I completed a quest and it didn't save. Started a second one, got through most of that, and then was like, I gotta go. I had to leave, and I rebooted it later, and it started me all the way back at the first quest. I was like, I'm not doing this again, you jerk.
Yeah. No way.
So I'm annoyed with the game right now. But like I said, it's more me than the game.
Yes, I'm still thinking about what you said about Assassin's Creed Rogue, and of course I love Black Flag. I understand why people don't like the ship battles, but I actually really like those. I think they're pretty fun. I liked the exploring out in the open seas and then going whaling and exploring islands and finding treasure. I just liked that whole pirate vibe. I thought it was fun. And I thought Rogue was more of that, but just not as fun overall. Didn't have that kind of pirate
it was
feeling to it.
Very serious toned. I don't remember
serious.
Black Flag as much. I think it was serious, but I don't think it was that serious.
It was, but it was still pirates, so it kind of had like it wasn't quite like what's the Johnny Depp series I'm blanking out on. It wasn't as silly as that can get. What's that called? What's the Johnny Depp Pirates
of
movies?
the Caribbean.
Thank you. It's not as goofy as that can tend to be, but it still has that same fun, I thought. You know, the characters were just more fun, and they were all just kind of living the pirate life. Rogue was a lot more serious.
Well, you're not even really a pirate in Rogue.
Right.
You're just like...
but you do all the same things that you did in the pirate game. So it's like they just built it right on top of the structure.
Exactly.
And just put it on a different story. So still kind of fun, just not as good in my opinion. Interesting twist on the Assassins and Templar story. I think it's worth playing, but if you played a lot of Syndicate and, like you said, Origins, it's going to be tough to go back to.
Yeah,
unless you're like me and you really enjoyed the ship battles, which I did, then you might like it. But if you didn't, I would say don't bother.
I would say there's 2 reasons to play this game.
Yeah.
One would be, well, why did Derek play it if he doesn't like Black Flag, by the way, for those who don't know, is not one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games. It's at the bottom. Like, it's not very bottom, but it's one of the bottom. So why would I play it? Well, I finish all the Assassin's Creed games. That's why I said I've been working on this one forever, because every time I start it, I'll play it for a little while, and then I'm like, gosh, you're just so annoying. Like, I hate you. But I wanted to see the story through. So that was reason enough, and I can say the payoff's pretty cool.
It is.
Without spoiling it, it leads you into Unity, which is cool. I like how they did that.
Like a direct scene from the opening of Unity, so it's interesting.
So they did some cool stuff with it. It definitely has a story worthy of playing. It has some decent characters. There's characters you're going to recognize in the game from Assassin's Creed 3, stuff like that, and Unity. So there's a lot of filler in this game. It's just for me personally, as somebody who doesn't care for the ship battles, and it's kind of dated when it comes to like controls. There were several times where I was like telling it to do certain things and it was doing its own thing, and I was like, ugh, this stuff didn't bother me. I remember everybody would complain about Assassin's Creed games. They control terribly, and I'm like, they're fine. And now that I've played more updated Assassin's Creed game and then go back to this one, you definitely see it. You're like, oh, wow, yeah, this is annoying.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. So, yeah, but that's interesting. I'm glad you got a chance to go back and finish it because, like you said, the way Ubisoft has connected those stories from entry to entry has been interesting. Maybe not always perfect, of course, but it's almost like a Marvel Universe style thing where they're trying to make sure there's connections from story to story, from character to character. So it's interesting. I think there's good payoff there for fans who play all the entries. So, all right, okay, I got to feed the dog and water the dog so he doesn't die. Just got a reminder to do that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. I finished Oxenfree. Pretty short game. Pretty cool little game. If you like story-based mystery, no, it's not trash. It's definitely not trash. Story-based mystery adventure type games. You know, choosing your dialogue, all that. You have to make on the fly decisions at times too. You'll like it. if you were the kind of person who started up a game like Firewatch, and then as you got through it and realized what was happening, and you were very disappointed, I would say try this one because it has a similar, just kind of nice conversation, interesting characters, very realistic feeling conversations, and then a mystery introduces itself, and then it becomes serious. Well, Firewatch, in many people's minds, was a big letdown, and I understand why. This one actually delivers on there being an actual sci-fi mystery going on. So I think it's interesting. I think it has some dark turns, but really just some interesting takes on a whole bunch of different things. I don't want to give away too much.
Without spoiling it, and maybe this
Yeah.
will get me to actually play it because I downloaded it because you're not the first person to say it's good. There's been tons of people, and you're talking about it having a mystery. What is the point of the game? Like, what? Why are you these kids? What are you doing? I don't even know that because I've done.
So you
no
take
research.
the role of a high school, I think junior named Alex, and all you learn this early on is that her brother died at sometime recently in the last couple years, and then you find out throughout the game how that happened and all the fallout there. And she and a few friends, including her new stepbrother, her dad just married this guy's mom or something like that. Her new stepbrother, they barely know each other. They're part of a group of, I think, 5 teenagers that are going to this island that is totally abandoned. You have to take a ferry to get out there. It's a tourist trap kind of place, but it's closed at nighttime. So they go out there at night to hang out on the beach and drink beer and talk. And that's just kind of like a thing that they do, I guess, once a year, twice a year.
Okay.
And they get out to this island. There's a bunch of snarky conversation. You get to choose some stuff to say. And then you go into a cave. You tune your radio to a certain dial setting. You have this little two-way radio. And all this weird radio static stuff starts to happen. And then there's some time travel elements that get introduced out of nowhere. And some pretty freaky stuff starts happening. You can't tell if you're seeing what's real or if it's fake. Is it some kind of ghost? Is it some kind of space-time continuum break? You don't really know what it is out of the gate. So that's kind of the mystery that kicks in, is you guys are getting messed with by something. That's kind of the premise. So
and it has a good payoff.
I think it's got a pretty solid payoff. I won't say it's amazing. It doesn't have an M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end. 4 hours, and you'll skip through a lot of the conversations. You'll skip the optional stuff. So you could probably finish it in 3, maybe even.
Yeah.
A couple frustrating things about it. Number one, it makes you backtrack a lot, but they make that not quite as bad because there's conversations that help explain a lot of stuff as you're walking. You are walking with at least one or more characters, and they're talking. So the dialogue is filling in some gaps while you walk. But there still is there's a little bit of that going on. And there's really zero puzzle solving of any kind. So there's really no gameplay here. You're just experiencing the story and choosing dialogue.
Okay.
I can't think of any moment.
I'm not a big puzzle fan anyway, so I feel like those are usually forced in those type of games.
But overall, great game. I thought it was really, really solid, especially if you got it for free during. I think it was given away free on a couple systems. So. I also finished the Shadow of the Colossus remake, not necessarily just a remaster, right? It's a complete remake. We talked about it a lot last week, but I finished it, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Still one of my favorite games of all time. Love it. I won't talk too much more about it. If you want to hear our thoughts on it, go check out the discussion from last week. The one thing I will say is the final boss. I had forgotten how frustrating the final boss is. That's where the camera and some of the lack of precision in controls, I'll say, kind of bear themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
On that final boss. Again, didn't ruin the game. Obviously, I still love it. But I did have moments where I had to take a deep breath. Like, this is so annoying. I know I did that right. Why did it not work? So, anyway.
Because it's racist.
Because it is racist. It hates me. All right. So, some new stuff that I'm playing. Oh, I'm also playing Monster Hunter World. I think I'm towards the end of that game. I've opened up the entire map now, and I'm facing off with what appears to be, and cutscenes appear to be, this is the final boss. I think I'm heading towards the end game here. I have a really cool armor set now. I just unlocked this awesome skull helmet that actually looks like I look like the bad guy from He-Man. I forget his name a little bit because I've got this kind of shiny black and purple armor that I got from beating the first Elder Dragon multiple times. And then I put on this skull mask. My guy looks awesome. He has a big lava hammer. So I love the way the gear looks, the weapons, and I'm having fun with it still. It's a nice go-to game when I'm not sure what to do if I've got some time. So I
Yeah,
still
I
love
got
that game.
sick of it way faster than you because you're
Yeah,
obviously past me now. Because I play it every once in a while casually, but I didn't even talk about it tonight because I'm just not really
I haven't
playing
played it, right?
it. Yeah.
No, it's really good. I mean, we're very early in the year, but it's sitting there at the top of the list so far this year. Also played some Owlboy. This is a side-scrolling platform that was out on PC last year. Now it's finally, I think it's on all consoles now,
Yeah,
but
it
it's out on
released, I think, everything.
yeah, so it's out on Switch specifically. This is a really good game if you've got a video game kid like I do. So Shepard has kind of turned into my real video game buddy. He'll try everything, but he really gets into games,
Mm-hmm.
and he's very good at puzzle solving and figuring out for himself. So he and I have been playing Owlboy. We each have our own saves, and he'll watch me play for a while, then we'll switch over and let him play his save. And
What a
so
terrible father that you will not buy a second Switch.
I know
You're
I
just
need
a
to get him
bad
one.
dad.
That kid needs a Switch.
When's his birthday?
Next week.
Okay, so stop throwing him dumb parties because that wastes money. Just have your wife cook food and get him a
Yeah.
Switch.
And get him a Switch. Yeah.
And
so
I know
don't go to dumb
he's the
Chuck E.
one that has a
Cheese.
twin, correct?
He does.
All right, tell the twin he gets nothing
Okay.
because
all right.
he's not a gamer.
Actually, can I call them in here and you can tell them this right now?
Yeah, and
Can
I'll
you-
say it just like this, so be prepared. One of them's gonna cry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all right. That's okay.
The one not getting
But
gifts.
yeah, so Owlboy is and people say this all the time. People say games like Celeste, oh, it's just a gorgeous pixelated game. I have trouble saying that. I think it's got style and it looks like an old school game and it runs well, but I wouldn't call it gorgeous. This game actually is really pretty. It's got some really cool background.
Isn't
It reminds me
Owlboy
of-
more clean than Celeste? Celeste
It's
looks
really
like a
clean.
bit game.
Exactly.
Whereas
This one looks
Owlboy
like
looks clean.
the best that Super Nintendo had to offer, possibly something you'd see on PS1. So it's got some really crisp visuals for a side-scrolling game. Not to mention the soundtrack is amazing. So obviously you're this owl kid and you can fly so far unlimited, right? You can jump up in the air and start flying and you can fly in all directions. And so the soundtrack is really, really good for like a take flight adventure type of a game. I think it's super fitting and very charming. I'm not too far into the game, and neither is my son. We've played it for a little while, but so far I can recommend it if it caught your eye and if you like. It's kind of an action puzzle platforming game. There's some shooting. The basic mechanics are you can jump and fly. You've got a spin move and a roll attack. But more specifically, it's all about picking things up. So maybe you're going to pick up items to drop them on enemies. You've got a buddy who you can pick up and he can shoot. So as long as you're holding him with your talons and flying around, you can use the right stick and the right trigger to aim and shoot with him while you're flying with the left stick. So it's kind of interesting, and I think they're going to introduce more characters to carry around with new abilities. I think it's a really fascinating game, and I recommend it. It's a good one.
How much?
So
How
I
much
like
is it?
It's a little too much unless you're super into it just from looking at it. I think it's like 20, 25. So I would wait for a sale if you're on the fence, but then
Yeah.
definitely get it once it hits a sale. But if you're a super indie lover, go get it right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love those.
All right. So, and lastly, and I know hopefully you'll appreciate this one at least, I'm playing Bayonetta on the Switch. I bought Bayonetta 2, which instantly gave me I think it was like a 50% discount on Bayonetta 1. Essentially, digitally, you can get them both for $60. And I think, of course, if you buy it at Best Buy, you can get your GCU discount, things like that.
Wait a second.
So,
You don't just get Bayonetta with it? They give you a discount off of it?
yeah, digitally at least. Yep.
Wait, I thought you got it for free. Oh, you're saying how much did you pay for Bayonetta 2 if you don't buy Bayonetta?
50.
Ah, so you can pay 60 and get Bayonetta.
You got it.
I got it.
Yep.
Okay. Because I was getting confused. I'm like, dude, I thought the game was free with
Yep.
Bayonetta 2.
And of
but
course,
I
if
got
you
it.
have Best Buy, you can go to the store,
Pay
buy
50,
Bayonetta 2
yeah.
for your $48 or whatever, and then that comes with a download code. Which, by the way, there's some news about some issues with the codes. I think Nintendo is following up with people who have the wrong codes, but whatever. So anyway, I fired up Bayonetta 1. It had been since the old 360 days when I played the demo for it way back in the day. I think I played it from GameFly for a little bit. So I didn't remember really any of this game other than there's this female character who is dressed pretty provocatively and it's very stylized and it's very action-packed, and that's exactly what it is. So this game is rated mature for a reason. Obviously, they kind of let's say, sensualized things. I wouldn't say it's overtly sexualized in that there's not actual sex type stuff happening on screen or even talked about. It's just very provocative. The stuff she's wearing, the way she attacks, the way that when she really unloads a big attack, her whole outfit, which is pretty much her hair, they cover up key parts, and then the hair just shoots out and forms a big dragon and destroys the enemy. So that's going to upset a lot of people. I don't recommend playing this with your kids, obviously, but if you like action games, if you like platinum games, and if you're an adult who can handle that kind of stuff.
So you're saying if
recommend
you're
it.
like me and lonely and women don't like you, you
Yeah.
should buy this game so you could at least play with a woman.
Yeah, that's
A sexy
exactly what I'm
woman.
saying. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm being totally honest, I wish it weren't designed that way. But it is a very
little nerd church boy.
It is. That's the first time you've called me that. Weirdly enough, 114 episodes. That's the first time you've said that.
You nerd church.
I really
wish they would get the boobs out of there. They're
Well,
very
I just-
offensive. I don't like
listen.
boobs.
I'm not saying it's offensive. I'm saying I wish they hadn't designed it that way. Same thing with Nier, right? Same company, really fun game. Obviously, I liked it a lot. I talked
Really
about it a lot.
upset with Nier. Like I was not trying to look up her skirt at all. It just kept accidentally happening.
Yeah,
I was
yeah. Your
very upset.
screenshots were just at the weirdest moments. Then
Yeah,
Um,
so weird.
crazy how that happens. But overall, I have very positive vibes towards this video game. It's very fun to play. The boss fights are satisfying. The finishing moves especially are just awesome. You can do these torture attacks where depending on, I think it's random, and then you tap a button real fast to try to up the attack power on it, and it's gruesome and fun. So if you like that very over-the-top style of game, and it kind of has a Quentin Tarantino vibe right out of the gate too, and some of the dialogue is very tongue-in-cheek,
Yeah.
cheesy. It's good. It's fun. It's a very fun game. So
I played the original when it launched, but I didn't finish it. So I'll probably get Bayonetta on PC when it's super cheap. I have it on the Xbox One for backwards compatibility, but I'll probably buy it on PC when it's cheap, and then maybe get Bayonetta 2 if I like Bayonetta 1 on the Switch. But it's not my style game. Like I know you did like a poll recently about your favorite platinum games, and you listed them all out, and I was like, I've always said I like platinum. Like I respect their work, I like them. And then I looked at the list, and I'm like, I don't like platinum. I don't like their games. There's only one game on there that I kind of liked, and I hated it. Well, let me say, spell it out. Metal Gear Revengeance was fun because I was just getting into the Metal Gear franchise. So I was like excited to play with who is actually my favorite character in the Metal Gear franchise, and that's Raiden, however you want to say it. I just think he's a cool design character. He's a little flamboyant, but he's cool in the way he looks. But I hated the game because the boss fights, and I'll say it right now, I do not care. I played that game on easy. I didn't even try normal.
yeah,
like
I've
I
heard it's
tried
pretty-
normal,
the
but
difficulty spikes,
easy,
doesn't it?
easy was hard. And I hope
Yeah.
somebody else listens to this show and says, Derek, you are not alone. I did easy and it was ridiculous. The last boss fight, I was like crying. I don't remember how long I did it for, but I was like, I can't beat this, and this is easy. Like, he was
hilarious.
ridiculous. I don't even know how I beat it, but I did. But that's
Yeah,
the only
so, I mean,
platinum game I've beat. Well,
Bayonetta
besides
has
Nier.
has some tough stuff already. I mean, I'm on chapter 6 of, I think, 13, so I'm right about that halfway point.
Mhm.
And it's had some tough boss fights. I mean, there's a few moments where I've died. The quick time events really kill me. It did in God of War 2, where sometimes you don't see it coming. Like, oh, I wasn't supposed to just watch. I'm supposed to hit X really fast here or whatever. So God of War is a little more forgiving, actually, in that. Whereas Bayonetta, if you miss it, it only gives you about like 1.5 seconds. And then you die, and then you fortunately restart the checkpoint right before that. But anyway, it does give me some God of War vibes at times, like the original God of War game in terms of the vibe, in terms of, and Darksiders. The first Darksiders game, I think, is somewhat comparable in tone, in atmosphere, and some of the enemies that you fight, and some of the repetitive ways that you fight some of the enemies. So it's fun, but I must warn you, very repetitive. There's tons of combos to learn. There's weapons you can pick up as you're battling. There's some really cool finishing moves you can do, but it is very repetitive, and you need to be quick on your toes because some of the enemies start attacking fast and furious, and they'll kill you fast.
I died off from I don't what do they call those games? Like these fast-paced action games. I don't know what they're called. I don't know if there's some type of franchise or not franchise, but some type of
Like a genre name?
genre or something like Devil May Cry. All of them would be lumped up in that.
Yeah, Devil May Cry is a good comparison too.
But like God of War, I beat all the God of War games except Ascension. I stopped halfway through it. But that's the franchise that kind of got me into that style. And then after I played the first 2 and started 3, I was like, I'm done. And at that time, I was more of a, we didn't have all these groups. We didn't have even IGN, all them weren't this big. God of War was just special because I was like, I'm supposed to like this. This is a big Sony franchise, and it's doing something like really gory, really sexual. So I like this game. So that's how it was like embedded in my head. Like God of War's good. I like it, and I love David Jaffe, by the way. But as I've grown and I'm like starting to realize, hey, I don't like this type of stuff. That's one of the genres. Again, don't really know what it's called. I'm discovering I really don't like it. Like, I don't really like the Devil May Cry games. I thought I did. Again, the illusion of, well, they're popular, so I must like them. But DMC is the only one I beat. The rest of them I didn't care about. I don't care about any of Platinum's games from your list. I didn't enjoy Nier Automata. I didn't enjoy Revengeance enough that I would ever touch that thing again. I mean, it's just not my style. So that's why I wasn't like, oh, I got to get Bayonetta 1 and 2. No, I won't play them.
Yeah. They play really well, by the way. One last thought on that is, well, I haven't played the second one yet, but I will. Bayonetta 1, though, plays really great. It looks great. I know it's a last-gen game, but I think it looks fantastic. I've only played it on the little screen.
I was going to say, it's probably crisper on the little screen.
Probably. So overall, very good experience. Again, it's a mature game. So it's got a lot of sexuality and innuendo in it, and it's got a ton of gore. So just keep that in mind as you go to buy it. It's not going to be for everybody, but I am enjoying it. So there you go.
All right, cool.
All right. Well, let's take a turn here and talk about some numbers. So go ahead and get your pillow out, Derek. It's time to cozy up and fall asleep while I talk about data. No, this is actually pretty interesting stuff. When you look back at 2017, I pulled from a few different sources to talk about, well, really just one source for console sales data, because this is pretty well regarded as equivalent numbers to what everyone's sharing. It's the software sales where it gets complicated, because sometimes they rank it by overall revenue, because some games are games as service with lots of in-game purchases and that kind of thing. Other games do it just as straight up sales, which will exclude certain games, especially something like PUBG. We'll talk about that, which was in not in beta. What was it? It was like early access for most of the year. So do you count all those? So there's lots of different variables, and of course digital versus physical. So I'll talk about a few different sources here too, but it's just really interesting to look and see what consumers like us were buying last year.
Yeah.
So this first section, we'll just talk about console sales. This is according to Statista.com, although a lot of other sources, like Wikipedia, for example, which pulls from sources, a lot of them match up with some of these numbers. So worldwide, the PS4 last year was reported as selling, not just shipping, but selling 19.64 million units, which would put the total up above 76 million. That's even into January.
Outstanding.
Which is amazing. I mean, absolutely stellar numbers. And of course, the number 2 system from this past year was the surprise hit, the return to form for Nintendo, the Nintendo Switch. In 2017, sold, depending on which report you look at, anywhere from 11.8 million up to 13 million in 2017. Of course, now we know they're close to 15 million into January and February. But yeah, just a stellar year for that system, which really was only 9 months on the market, and it sold right around 12 million last year. It's just crazy. And then the Xbox One, no slouch either, sold 8.2 million units, putting its total shipped up to somewhere between 25 and 30 million.
I would think it's got to be closer to 30 million.
I think so
too.
too.
I heard back in like 2016 that a lot of people thought they were speculating that it was at 20 to 25 million. So
Yeah. So they could even be over 30 million. But because
they
Microsoft
won't.
isn't providing
It's
those
just so
numbers,
dumb. Like, I get
Yeah.
it, you're losing to PlayStation, but
right?
why not just release your numbers? Like,
Sony
nobody's
did
a
the same thing
fool.
with PS3
I
when they were losing.
know. I just don't
Yep.
get it. I don't get it.
Yep. Yep. It's their way of finding the easier to swallow version of the numbers, right? And trying to share them. With
I mean, I
everybody,
don't know if
so.
it's like, and maybe I'm off on this. I try to think that I'm a pretty smart guy, but I'm like, the only thing I can think of from a business standpoint that you wouldn't want to share that is nobody generally supports losers. And so if they're admitting that they're
That's fair, yeah.
losing, that people are going to be like, no, I don't want to go with the second-rate console. Because again, I know better, but I'm talking about a mom who's trying to buy for her son. She's going to go into GameStop or Best Buy or whatever and say, I want to get the best console for my kid.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, and those systems aren't alone. There are other systems that sold really well last year. The Nintendo 3DS, I think it's in year 7 now, I want to say. That sold 6.19
Probably.
million units. That puts it up to just a hair under 72 million total. So, of course, the PS4 passed it this year with its insane sales rate. Every year, it just keeps selling.
Now,
So
that
the PS4, of
includes,
course,
when
is a
they do
phenomenon,
3DS, they're including like 2DS and all that
Oh, yeah.
stuff. Okay.
Every model of the 3DS family. So the new
And I
3DS.
do think that's what's helping a lot of these consoles nowadays is I think, and I'm not saying the PS4 Pro sells a lot, but I think I'll use you as an example. At some point, you're going to upgrade.
Yeah.
Who said that back in like the PS2 days? Can't wait to get that new model of that PS2.
Yeah,
No.
You're right.
You were like,
You're
it's
right.
the same console, it's just a little bit lighter. Now you
Yep.
can go justify it because you're like, listen, honey, I've had this for 4 years. We have a 4K TV. This is going to make my games look and run better.
Yep.
And so I think
Yep.
Microsoft and Sony are definitely benefiting from being able to do these half
The upgrades.
bump ups.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo will do
Yeah.
it too. I think in a couple of years you're gonna get some new type of Switch that's more powerful, maybe even a
Better
little
battery
bit
life.
smaller, better battery life. I think so, and they're gonna sell it for
Yeah, I
another
think
300, and the
the
old
the
school
form
one will be
factor
200.
makes a difference. I mean, even when you look back to older systems, the PS2 Slim came out and
Mhm.
just destroyed. It sold many more millions of units, and same thing with PS3 Slim. That was one of the factors, there's many, as to why Sony caught up with the 360 by the time they were done. Of course, games had a big part of that too. They actually started putting out good games, and they dropped their price, put out a PS3 Slim, and then boom, that thing just sold.
Hard
like
drive
crazy.
helped too. I got into
Hard drive, yeah.
digital gaming late into the generation for 360 and PS3, and I upgraded both of those consoles because of hard drives.
Yep. Yeah, and of course the 3DS, as we mentioned, has had multiple iterations. The regular DS had multiple iterations too, which is why that one's in like the 150 million range, because they kept giving it new life with new iterations on the hardware. So I don't want companies to overdo it. As long as they keep a healthy cadence with that, it can be very, very effective, as we've seen.
Yep.
And of course, this isn't necessarily a real, quote unquote, real console, but it's worth mentioning because of the sales numbers. The SNES Classic pushed 4 million units last year.
Would have done more if they had more. I mean, they
Would've
did a
done more if
better
they had
job
more?
than yeah. I mean, they did a better job. I have to give them credit than they did with the original NES Classic, but
Yep.
I think they would have probably done 6 or 7 million if they had.
Probably easily. Yep. And they were only on the market for, what was that, 3.5 months.
Yeah, we got
for
it.
this
I
data.
got it in September, late September, I think.
Yep. So there you go. So SNES Classic was worth mentioning just because Nintendo has really pushed a ton of hardware, even when it's a classic version of a console with just a set collection of games without the ability to add to it legally, at least. And of course, worth mentioning too, the PS Vita, it sold just under, well, let's say 0.72 million. I was going to say just under a million, but it's 0.72 million. 720,000 units sold globally last year, which puts them in the 10 to 15 million range. If people are going to call the Wii U a failure, I think you have to call the Vita a failure as well.
It is a fail.
But it is still selling, especially overseas.
I mean, all you have to do is compare it to the 3DS. It's a huge fail.
Yeah.
Huge fail.
I always want to bring up. You mentioned Colin Moriarty earlier. Just bringing up that whole that article he wrote about how the Vita is going to crush the 3DS. You know, when those two systems were both announced.
And him and Greg, as popular as they were, would not stop talking about the Vita like it was some amazing device. And they still, Sony, everybody could not push this thing to be a success.
No, they couldn't. So there you go. There's the hardware sales. According to Statista.com, there's several other sources, and the numbers aren't too far off depending on which source you look at. But fantastic year for Sony. Fantastic year for Nintendo. I would say a steady year for the Xbox One, especially considering the lack of powerhouse exclusives. So I would call it steady for them. All right, let's talk about game sales, software sales themselves. Now, one quick note, PUBG, as far as I could find, never shared official sales numbers, although you can find other sources that can show you some download data here and there. And in general, all the sources I could find, the word is it sold over 30 million copies, early access and actual purchases, which would put it at the #1 spot this year.
And just keep in mind, this isn't a huge deal, but if I'm talking money, this is a huge deal. This game can be purchased from anywhere from $20 to $30, whereas most of the games we're going to talk about at launch, most people are probably paying $40 to $60 for them. So it's basically a cut in half what these other games were selling for.
I mean, not unlike the phenomenon of Minecraft, which was never more than, I don't think it was ever more than $30 on most platforms.
I thought it was
maybe
20 for like 90% of the platforms.
I think it was. Yep. So of course that's worth taking into consideration, but that doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's still phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, PUBG is a nothing. Nobody knows anything about it, and then all of a sudden, it just blows up by word of mouth. So, 30 million plus is awesome. I'm just saying it's easier to buy. I bought it out of pure curiosity when it was $20. I can justify spending $20 and screwing myself with that rather than somebody saying, "Hey, this game's good," and having to drop 60 for it.
Well, and the again unofficial word is that most of those are, of course, PC purchases. They're saying that the Xbox One version is somewhere in the 3 to 3.5 million range.
I think it did. I think Microsoft actually announced
did they?
The sell numbers for PUBG, and they said it was selling like crazy. So that's good.
Yeah, so that did pretty well again, especially considering the fact that Xbox as a console didn't sell a ton this year. They did have some software that sold gangbusters. So let's talk about the NPD numbers. So this is, of course, a major data firm that many outlets use as their primary source of sales information. What they do is they look at physical and digital copies as much as they can. Some companies, like Nintendo, don't provide all their digital sales.
Yeah.
And at least not to NPD for this report. You can find that other places.
Nintendo doesn't even know what their digital sales are.
Yeah, it's because it's still a bunch of old guys like, what's this?
Can we make money off this?
So, according to NPD, here are the top 10 selling games in 2017, just in the U.S. Okay, we're just talking about U.S. sales for this particular top 10 list. Number 10 is Mario Kart 8. Number 9 is Super Mario Odyssey. Both of those not including digital sales. Number 8 is Star Wars Battlefront 2, not including PC digital sales. Just as a side note, Star Wars Battlefront 1, when that launched, was that 2 years ago, I think? That was number 4 in the total list. So that sold significantly better than the sequel did. And that, of course, has a lot to do with the negative news swirling around this game. Number 7 was Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. So that was Ubisoft's best-selling game of the year.
That's actually pretty impressive.
It is. It's very impressive. That game has surprise success, I think. People weren't expecting it to do as well as it did, sales-wise. Grand Theft Auto 5, and this is not even talking about revenue. We'll talk about revenue in a little bit. This is just actual purchases of this game in the USA. It's at number 6. This game's 5 years old almost, and it's still outpacing these brand new games. It's crazy. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, not including digital sales. This does cover both Wii U and Switch versions.
Okay.
Number 4 is Madden 2018. Number 3, Destiny 2, not including PC digital sales. Again, this is just in the USA, but Destiny 2 it was number 3. And then NBA 2K18 at number 2. And at number 1, you have Call of Duty World War II. And according to NPD, it's the 9th straight year that a Call of Duty game is at number 1. And this actually, they posted their best unit sales in the US since 2012. So they are still kicking. And of course, Activision having 2 of the top 3 best-selling games in the US is pretty impressive. Having Call of Duty and Destiny 2. Pretty impressive
And
stuff.
it's hilarious that like Destiny 2 is considered semi a failure, yet clearly it's not.
Yeah, it made the monies. It definitely made the money. And then, of course, you have to look at a place like Amazon. So Amazon released their best-selling games of the year. And this is very interesting. I think behavior on Amazon is not always indicative of the overall industry, but it's still one of the biggest outlets out there. So I thought it was worth mentioning that Amazon sales look very different. At number 10, you've got Breath of the Wild on the Wii U. Number 9, you've got Pokemon Ultra Moon. Number 8, you've got Pokemon Ultra Sun. Number 7, Splatoon 2 for the Switch. Number 6 is Call of Duty World War II for the Xbox One. Number 5 is Call of Duty World War II for the PS4. Number 4 is Horizon Zero Dawn. Number 3 is Breath of the Wild for Switch. Number 2 is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And number 1 is Super Mario Odyssey. So the purchasing patterns on Amazon, and I believe this is global purchases, were so heavily Nintendo, it makes you wonder if this is where most parents are buying stuff for their kids, perhaps. Is this not where gamers are doing most of their shopping? I don't know, but it's very
Well, it's weird because I
Nintendo
thought
heavy.
Nintendo and Amazon didn't have a very good relationship, and that they didn't sell Nintendo products real well. Well, apparently that's not true.
Yeah, well, they should work it out because both of them are benefiting from what's happening on Amazon. And of course, Steam as well. They put out their own top 10 list because, again, these ecosystems are just very different. So the top 10 according to Steam. Number 1 is Ark Survival Evolved, and I think this is similar to what you talked about earlier, where the price isn't super high. It's been on early access forever, and it's just kind of built up a community around it. That's number 1 from 2017. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, number 2.
Yeah, that's like a $15 game.
Divinity Original Sin 2 was the 3rd best-selling game on Steam. Dota 2 at number 4. Which makes sense because that's a Valve game, isn't it? Isn't Valve put Dota 2 out?
I don't know.
Pretty sure. I could be totally wrong.
Never tried Dota.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is their number 5 selling game. H1Z1. Oh, you know what? I should backtrack for a second. This is just an alphabetical order. This is not their actual in order. This is just here's their top 12 selling games.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
my-
You still get
my
a general
fault.
idea.
So Ark, Counter-Strike, Divinity, Original Sin 2, Dota 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, H1Z1, which I believe is another survival game like Rust or like Ark. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, of course. Rainbow Six Siege, Rocket League, The Witcher 3, so 2 mainstays from 2015. Ghost Recon Wildlands, and Warframe. Those are your 12
and
best-selling
Dota 2
games
is
on
a
Steam.
Valve game.
Okay, I thought so. Because they promote that thing like crazy, obviously, on their system, on Steam. So there's your best-selling games on Steam. I found this really cool website. It was sent to me by, I'm blanking out who it was. I'm sorry if you're still listening, and because last year this person sent me a link to a company called Superdata, and they do some really interesting research on interactive media. Most of their reports cost money, and I mean a lot of money, because that's meant for marketing teams and large companies to buy and use the data for their marketing purposes. But they put out some free reports as well, which is what I used. So I grabbed some of their digital sales reports from 2017 and grabbed some numbers from there. This is all digital. So this company, they really specialize in digital market.
Okay.
So this is what they're talking about. So some interesting facts here, just as the overall behavior in interactive digital media. It was over 100 billion in total interactive media revenue. That means it was some sort of game. Now, in some cases, it might be a lot of this is mobile. We'll talk about it in a second, where you're barely interacting with it at all. But it would not include movie and music purchases for sure.
Okay.
It's just interactive media, which is the best year for revenue from interactive media ever. So it's the most money made in history. Of course, 59.2 billion of that is from mobile, which is no surprise. But most of that, a majority of that mobile income is coming from Asia, 61%. North America, on the other hand, is only accounting for 15% of that mobile revenue. So again, not a huge surprise. We know that countries like China and Japan and these countries that are over there in Asia, they thrive. Their mobile market is just insane. That's why a lot of these companies that were traditionally all about consoles and big, large AAA games have shifted so far away from that because that's what the market is wanting. 33 billion of that is from PC. This is mostly social and free-to-play games. Mostly social and free to play, which again, not a surprise at all. For premium PC games, in other words, like Derek was talking about earlier, you go to an online store for the most part with PC, you make a one-time purchase of anywhere from $20 or whatever, all the way up to 60. That is mostly North America and Europe, where you've got the hardcore gamers who are still buying these large game experiences. They make up 87% of premium PC purchases, so not a surprise at all. But that chunk is very small compared to free to play and social, which to many of us kind of feels gross, feels very TGT, DFC, all those acronyms that we love to bring back. But that's just a reality of where the money's coming from. I mean, these companies are making so much money on free to play, social games,
That's why
and mobile games.
like I get annoyed when, and we don't see it as much, but people would come in our group and start whining about like Square Enix releasing another mobile game, and they're like, why would they do this? I'm like, because they're a business.
This is why.
I mean,
Yeah,
what are you
this is why.
talking about?
Yep.
That's what.
This
That's
is where
what,
they make their money.
You're lucky we get console games sometimes, because they could all just go straight mobile and be like, this is the easiest thing ever. Mobile gaming's got to be the easiest thing for most of these publishers,
Right.
and they make a killing off of it. So
Absolutely.
we're,
I like
we're
to
lucky.
think of it as I'm not big into almost, I would say 99% of mobile and free to play games that come out, I have no interest in.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
don't
one will
give a
catch my attention.
crap.
But I never am interested, but I appreciate that it exists because it's funding my console games being created and released. So these companies can make money. Companies even like Nintendo that are making tons of money on mobile. More power to them as long as it means they can keep funding these big games that we enjoy. So out of that 100 billion, only 8.3 billion of it, so only 8% of it is from console digital sales, which again, not a huge surprise. North America and Europe make up 88% of that. Just let that sink in for a second. In the US, I guess I should say US and Canada and Europe, 88% of console digital game sales happen there. They don't happen around the rest of the world nearly as much. So a continent like Asia, where you've got all this mobile activity and free-to-play activity, they're not buying as many console digital games. It's not even close. That's very interesting to think about. So when Super Data releases this list, the top 10 digital console games by revenue, just keep in mind this is mostly USA and Europe. So this top 10 list is ranked by revenue. It's only for console games and it's only digital. So here we go. Number 10. Rainbow Six Siege made 172 million last year.
Nice.
Call of Duty Infinite Warfare made 201 million. Ghost Recon Wildlands made 221 million.
Wow.
Call of Duty Black Ops 3 made 248 million. Battlefield 1, 301 million. FIFA 18 made 324 million. Again, that was only in 3 months of release. Destiny 2 made 329 million. FIFA 17 made 409 million last year. So I wonder what FIFA 18 will look like. I bet you it'll replace 17 in that third place spot next year.
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty World War II, of course, only out for 8 weeks maybe, made $502 million last year. And of course, this is everything from game sales, but it includes all the DLC you could buy, all the Game Pass, Season Pass, all the extra content you can buy. That is why the number one game that made money on digital console in digital console revenue last year was Grand Theft Auto 5 with $521 million made last year. Grand Theft Auto Online is an absolute crazy hit, and they're making so much money. I'd be surprised. I should say this. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a long time till we even hear a peep about Grand Theft Auto 6. Why would they bother? Grand Theft Auto Online is crushing it. So anyway, so there you go these games are making tons of money. I'm glad to see companies, in many cases, still doing it the right way, but it also can be disheartening when you see them kind of go that gross route, like we kind of saw with Battlefront 2 at the end of last year. A couple quick stats. 1 in 3 people on the planet, 2.5 billion, they play free-to-play games across PC and mobile. That's an insane stat. 1/3 of the human population is playing free-to-play games. They maintain their grip on the worldwide games market, generating 82 billion or 89% across mobile and PC markets. So that's where the money is to be made. Whether we like it or not, even though it feels kind of gross, if you release your game mobile, free-to-play, internationally, and it's, of course, something that catches attention, that's where you're going to make your money. The problem there is everyone sees that, everyone tries to make it, and there's so much absolute garbage out there. I would say it seems like most of it is total garbage and absolutely worthless, that it can be easy to overlook the actual good stuff that's out there. Consumers spent $14 billion more on mobile games this past year than the previous year, so they're spending a lot more money. One thing I do want to highlight again, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, it generated $712 million in 8 months. Let me say that one more time. We just talked about Grand Theft Auto 5 making $521 million. PUBG made $712 million in revenue in 8 months. This thing wasn't even officially released yet, but it reinvigorated player interest, of course, in the Battle Royale genre, which now other games are starting to include, of course. Fortnite, Knives Out, and others are including that type of gameplay. But PUBG, since it wasn't a console game for these measurements, of course, was not on that top 10 list. If we branched it out to PC,
if I
it would
was
be on
the
that list.
owner of PUBG, I would just sell that crap off now and just retire.
Yeah.
Be like, I'm
You can
done.
do whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm done. Don't even
All
need
right,
to
and here's
make
our
another game.
here's our final list that we'll go through. It's just very interesting again to see what people are doing in the industry, what people like you and me are doing in terms of buying games, buying consoles. So according to VGCharts.com, that's actually a pretty interesting website if you guys haven't been there, VGChartz.com. This is their global software sales, and they are including, as much as they can, data from digital, physical, everywhere they can find it, and compiling it into their top 10 list. And this is global. Quick note, PS4 of the top 10 list had 47% of the top 10 software sales. Nintendo and 3DS combined for 45%. So Nintendo and Sony combined for 92% of the top 10 software sales globally. Of course, once you get out of the top 10, it starts to spread out a bit more. But that's fascinating to me that Sony and Nintendo right back at the top of the heap in terms of software sales. Xbox One holding that remaining 8%, of course. So here we go. Number 10. Oh, by the way, just barely missing the cut here for global software sales is Grand Theft Auto 5, Destiny 2, both on PS4. Both had over 3 million, so pretty impressive. Here we go. Globally, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy on PS4 sold 3.3 million units. Number 9, Splatoon 2 on the Switch sold 3.5, almost 3.6 million units. Pokemon Sun, Ultra Sun and Moon for the 3DS combined for 4.4 million units. Horizon Zero Dawn on PS4 sold 4.5 million units globally. Call of Duty World War II on Xbox One sold just under 4.6 million. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch sold 5.4 million, which shows you that sometimes re-releasing a game is the smartest thing you can do.
Yeah.
That game was out for 2 years. They re-released it on their new system that was a hot commodity, and I think that game had already sold like 8 or 9 million. And
yeah,
now
it had a good rate on the Wii U.
They essentially doubled their sales of this game by re-releasing it. Incredible. At number 4 is Breath of the Wild with 5.5 million units sold on the Switch. Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch also sold 6.4 million units. And here's your top 2. At number 2, you have FIFA 18 on the PS4 worldwide, sold 9.3 million units. And number 1, Call of Duty World War II on the PS4 with just under 9.6 million units sold on the PS4. So a ton of games sold, and here's the lesson learned for me. Nintendo is back in a big way.
Yeah.
Xbox is holding steady despite the fact that they really didn't have any major home run exclusives this year. So I think the brand power of Xbox remains, and I'm excited to see what they do next. And I hope that they don't continue to fade. I hope that they step up their game this year. And of course, another lesson learned is that Sony's dominating when it comes to console sales. They're just destroying for console and software sales. And so those are some of the main takeaways, in addition to the fact that I need to make peace with the fact that mobile and free-to-play is where money's to be made in this industry. and that's just a fact. It's just a reality. And I hope that some of our favorite companies out there keep doing this the right way. I'm okay with them dipping their toes in the mobile world and making their money that way. I just don't want to live in a world where everything goes mobile and free to play, and all the good stuff goes away. I don't think we'll ever get there. But so there you go. There's your nerd out session with some of the sales numbers from 2017. Curious to hear what you guys think of that, or maybe there's some other top 10 lists that we aren't aware of. Feel free to tweet at us at the FOTG. Follow us there. Give us your thoughts.
I really
there.
want you to change our address, our email. It
What would you
needs
like it
to be like, if you're gonna tweet, it needs to be at FOTFINGG.com. Fathers of the effing grind.
Perfect. Yeah.
Because Peaky Blinders is the greatest show ever created. That's how they talk. Peaky and Blinders.
Hey, actually, this could be really good. Tell you what, you go on Twitter, create a new account.
Okay.
Set it up exactly that way. Call yourself
I
Fathers
hate
of the Grind.
Twitter, by the way.
Call it the official Twitter account, Fathers of the Grind. I'll do the same thing, and then we'll get into a Twitter battle back and forth.
And then maybe like two people will care.
Just us, really. No one else will care.
Frank Clark might comment. Tell
might.
us that we're both trash, garbage, stupid.
He might, but you know what?
Tryhards.
I just gotta say this real quick as we close out. Frank, I saw your tweet. You called Man of Steel from Zack Snyder a masterpiece. You just tweeted
It
that out.
100% is. I actually love that tweet, and I rarely go on Twitter. The only reason why I go
is
is
not a masterpiece.
oh,
What are you
dude, that
talking
movie
about?
is phenomenal. I saw it in the theaters, and I was like disappointed at first, and then went back. And it's just one of my favorite superhero movies. I watch it all the time, probably every year.
You're
love
lying
it.
to me right now. You're lying right to my face.
I
There's no way that's
absolutely love. Go check his tweet. You'll see that I loved his tweet. Liked
You
it,
guys are
whatever you
both
want to call it.
nuts. You
It's
guys
an
are both
amazing
crazy.
movie.
No, it's not. It's not an amazing movie.
It has some of the best action moments in a superhero movie ever. That battle in the city, or I should say town, is awesome.
Yeah.
Like
Hey,
breathtaking.
there's some cool stuff in there. Still not a masterpiece.
It's a
All right.
masterpiece.
We're gonna.
I do want to
it
call
off.
Frank out, though. Come on, Frank. Like, seriously, you call everybody a tryhard. You call everybody trash. And I hope you listen to this, because you need to hear this. But he goes on Ben Affleck's Facebook. This is pathetic. He goes on Ben Affleck's Facebook, where he writes a post from back in October, I think, talking about like sexual harassment and Weinstein and all that stuff. And Frank goes on there and comments and says, Ben, please come back and be Batman. Everybody loves you as Batman. I'm like, what the
Oh my gosh.
hell?
Frank,
You
have some
freaking
pride,
try-
man. Have some pride.
First of all, Ben Affleck does not care about your opinion. Second of all, he's not going to read your comment. And third of all, that has nothing to do with what he's talking about. And his original post was stupid too.
No, Ben Affleck is now just living perpetually with the sad Affleck look on his face.
He
With that
is
hello darkness zoom in slowly on his
so stupid. Freaking
That-
try hard.
face. Is fantastic.
Well, at least Frank woke me up. Your dumb numbers put me to sleep.
Yeah.
But Frank
yeah.
made me angry, so now
That's
I'm
good.
up.
Because I'm gonna go over and play some more Monster Hunter World. I'm try to beat a couple of final monsters here, and you can go finish playing. Let's see, what was your list? With yourself. There it is. So
Well,
nailed it.
Sasan's sending me a lot of material for me to use for myself.
Gross. All right, we're gonna sign off before this heads down a really bad road. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Who is your daddy? I am the father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things here.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?